What is up, guys? My name is Oz, and welcome back to Podcast of the Damned. Today's episode is going to be on the Midnight Man game. So, you've probably heard of the Midnight Man game by now, either by the 2016 movie starring Robert Englund or the 2014 video game by Unicorn Studios, or just scrolling the internet. But for those of you who don't, here's a quick rundown. The Midnight Man game is when players summon the Midnight Man and try to avoid him at all costs. It's a game you probably shouldn't play, considering the punishment for getting caught is being disemboweled or being shown your worst fear. I would not recommend playing this game whatsoever, but here's how you play. You need at least one person. You can do it with a group of people. You will need multiple pieces of paper, pens, whatever for that. But what you'll need is a candle, matches, a piece of paper, a pen or pencil, a pin, a wooden door that's closed, and salt. You have to begin before midnight. You write your first, middle, and last name on a sheet of paper, then use the pin to prick your finger and draw some blood. Then you put the blood on the paper. You then turn off all the lights in the house and place the paper in front of the closed door. Take the candle, put it on top of the paper, and light it. Then you knock on the door 22 times, but make sure the final knock is right at midnight. You open the door, blow out the candle, and close the door. You must then relight your candle as soon as possible, and now the game begins. Keep your salt and candle in hand, because you will need it. But keep moving around the house. Make sure not to stay in one place too long. If you stop moving, he'll catch you. Also, make sure you don't bounce from the same two rooms. Like, if you're in the bedroom and go in the bathroom, don't go from the bathroom to the bedroom. So, just stuff like that. Like, keep moving in, like, random rooms. The goal is to avoid the Midnight Man. There are different accounts as to what happens if he gets you. Some say he shows you your biggest fear, others say he rips out your organs one at a time. Fun. But there is a question to be asked here. How does one know when the Midnight Man is close by? Here's a list of indications that will alert you to his presence. Temperature drops, unexplained whispering, seeing a human-shaped figure in the dark, or the candle going out. If you experience any of these things, leave the room immediately. Make sure your candle is always lit. If it goes out, you have to relight it in 10 seconds, which if you're using matches is a bit of a hassle, so I would suggest a lighter. If you can't relight your candle in 10 seconds, you have to make a salt circle around yourself and stay in there until 3:33 a.m. Well, if you do get your candle relit, keep moving around the house. The game ends at 3:33 a.m. But there are a few rules to keep in mind when you play the game. Don't turn on the lights, don't use a flashlight, don't fall asleep, don't use a lighter instead of a candle, and don't leave the house. And I think this one shouldn't even have to be said, but don't provoke the Midnight Man. You're not Shane Madej from BuzzFeed Unsolved. You can't just go in there and be like, hey demons, it's me, a boy. Do not. Just don't. And also, don't assume the Midnight Man left for good when the game ends, because people have reported after playing the game that they will still see him. And yeah, so just don't assume he's completely left for good. But now that I've explained the game and how it's played, we're going to dive into the history. I had said that the Midnight Man game was at one time a pagan ritual that originated from eastern Sweden in the 14th century. It was said to be used as a punishment for people who disobeyed the gods, but there are other claims that it's just a creepypasta. The oldest version of this game that's available on the internet dates back to August of 2010, but going back to the game being a pagan ritual, is this true or is this just a made-up story? It's unfortunately not an old pagan ritual. As cool as that would be, it did in fact come from the internet. But I did ask myself, could something like this at one point exist? I mean, there are so many rituals out there, and I figured maybe something similar exists. So I looked into it. Now, pagan is an umbrella term for religious beliefs other than the main world religions. Keep that in mind. I'm just doing a general sweep for any ritual in any sort of those religions, not necessarily from Sweden. Also, I'm just doing a general sweep of entities or gods, whatever, that have the same, that are similar to the Midnight Man. But anyway, going back to the Sweden thing, before the 11th century, their main practice was Norse paganism, and they worshipped Germanic deities. After that, they were converted, probably forcefully, knowing the times, to Christianity. But after much research, I couldn't find any similar ritual from the Norse religion, nor an entity that is similar from the Norse religion. Maybe mares from Norse mythology, but they're said to sit on you at night and cause bad dreams, which does connect somewhat to the fact that the Midnight Man shows you fears. But again, it's not really, that's kind of a stretch. But I started to look elsewhere, and I found, okay, forgive my pronunciation, the Rakasha? Anyways, they're entities from the Hindu and Buddhist religions. They're spirits of evil people who can shapeshift, create illusions, and eat people. So this definitely matches up to the Midnight Man's MO. You can see how they're similar. Again, I'm just researching this for fun. But also, I do kind of think, like, it's kind of, the Midnight Man is kind of like the Zozo demon. How, like, some guy just made it up, and then all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, I talked to the Zozo demon, this and that. It's kind of like a tulpa, in a sense. Once a lot of people start believing it, it kind of takes on its own life, and, But, another question is, does this game really work? Well, let's see what the internet has to say. We will again travel to the No Sleep forum of Reddit, my favorite place. But this story comes from a user by the name of Horseheader. He said he and his cousin played and saw the Midnight Man. And he said this: his eyes fixed on something, meaning his cousin. Without saying a word, I looked over to see what he saw. In that doorway was a very black outline, darker than pitch black, blacker than the blackness of the house outlined in the darkness. This thing was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, leading to the living room. It was almost human, but so much worse. His head was touching the top of the doorway, and his shoulders were touching the sides. This thing's arms were down near where my knees would have been if I stood in that doorway. This thing's eyes were the darkest part. It looks like the darkness condensed so far that it created a hole in the world. It looked right at us. The only reason I know that this thing was not a figment of my imagination was that when I started describing it, Tom finished the description. We ran into my room, which had felt the safest the entire night. We did not shut the door, which was against the rules. If you closed the door, it would know exactly where you were. So we saw this thing pass the door and go down the hallway. Near the end of the game, they entered their basement, and he said, the entire time we were downstairs, footprints were stomping up and down the stairs, all through the kitchen and the hallway above us. And every once in a while, we could see a face looking at us from the stairs. That's fucking creepy. That is goddamn creepy. I would be shitting myself. Another person said when they were playing the game, they saw him sitting in a chair when they went to enter their bedroom, and then claimed later in the night they saw him standing over one of their cats, and also stated that she spoke with him and he responded. Now, whether or not you believe these stories is up to you, but regardless, this game is terrifying, and I would advise against summoning any spirit if you're not prepared for it. Because that's the problem. A lot of, especially that's the problem with Ouija boards. It's made for kids. It's marketed as a game for kids. So a bunch of young people are out here like, oh, I'm gonna talk to ghosts. And then they come in contact with a demon, an evil entity that is out of their control and fuck shit up. It's not for kids, okay? Any of you young people out there listening to this, don't fucking summon shit. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because, again, as the game states, he might not leave after the game. And that is true for using a Ouija board or trying to contact spirits. If you come in contact with an evil spirit, it might attach itself to you. And then, they're a bitch to get rid of. So just don't do it. When in doubt, don't. This game most likely does not work, and these stories are just bullshit. I am a skeptic when it comes to these sorts of games because they come from the internet. And I am a rational adult, kind of. I am not rational. But always take it with a grain of salt. Anyway, that is the end of the episode. I will be back, hopefully putting out more content more frequently. But if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, tell me your scary stories if you have any, and maybe I'll put it in a video, or a podcast, in an episode, whatever. I'll put it somewhere. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Have a fantastic day, and don't summon demons.